Good evening, members, officers. Thank you all. Welcome to our Cabinet meeting this evening. We have 17 items on the agenda this evening, so it's a fairly comprehensive agenda to get through. A bit of housekeeping just to begin with. Obviously, all members are welcome to attend the Cabinet meeting, and it's good to see people coming along, taking an interest. This microphone is really loud.
Yeah, I was just going to tell you.
I know we have to do it for the live webcasting. Any better there? No. Let's see. Is that any better? No? Still? Yeah. Still echoing. Bear with us. Oh, you can't hear us? Is that? Huh? No, it's just, it's a bit, the webcam's a bit echoing.
Well, if you do the health and safety dump, no one pays attention to.
Is that any better? Yeah. That's better, isn't it? Yeah. Thanks, Anne. So, members, as I was saying, it's good to see members of the opposition coming along this evening. As is customary at Cabinet meetings, we'll invite group leaders to speak on behalf of their groups on items as we go. And as I say, we have a packed agenda this evening, so we are going to crack on. So, agenda item number 1, apologies for absence.
Councillor Adele Brown.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. Councillor McGeorge.
Thank you. Item 17, I will be removing myself from the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Being a member of Essex County Council.
Thank you. Any other declarations? Did so, yep. We'll take the county members on block. Okay. Agenda item number 3 are the minutes of the previous meeting. These are on pages 7 to 28. We have 2 sets of minutes to consider this evening. The first set relates to the Cabinet meeting that was held on the 20th of March 2024, and obviously the majority of the Cabinet were not here on that evening. So I have asked Councillor Baggott, who chaired that meeting, if this is a true record and if he could indicate to the committee that he is happy with the minutes.
Confirmed, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Baggott. So I'm going to take 2 votes. I'm going to take the first on the minutes from Wednesday the 20th of March. All those in favour of the minutes, please show. Any abstentions? Thank you. Those minutes are passed. The second minutes relate to our meeting that was held just a couple of weeks ago on the 27th of June. Are there any matters arising from these minutes? Members are happy. Can I take a vote that the minutes are a true record? All those in favour? Please show. Thank you. That is unanimous. Agenda item 4, Cabinet member decisions. This is for comment. Does any member of the Cabinet wish to comment on the CMDRs published? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a question for you to the officers. Some decisions were made during PERDA that were non-emergency. Could it be explained to us why those decisions were made during PERDA that were not emergency?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Mr. Sparks, as you were here at the time, not throwing a curveball at this stage, but do you have anything that you wish to add, or Lindsay in the back, whether or not you wish to come in? So the decisions that it relates to are the Basildon Community Transport Service, the grant funding to the CVS, the approval for side-by-side funding, the Twinning Association funding. All of these were decisions that were dated on or around the 15th of April. Or grant, either or. Anyone wish to say or answer the councillor?
I'm happy to take that. I can take that away and look at those specifically to understand why those decisions were taken during pre-election, but it may well have been because funding had to be allocated by a certain date and therefore decisions were taken in that way.
Okay, can you ensure that the Cabinet get a written explanation after the meeting
Yes,
so
of
that can
course.
answer Councillor Smith's questions? Thank you. Any other Cabinet member with questions on the CMDRs? No, any member of the opposition, group leaders? No? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 5 is the Cabinet work programme. Are there any comments on the work programme at this stage from the Cabinet? No? In which case we will proceed with the work programme as is. Agenda item 6 is the area committees and the report from the Cabinet Member for Culture, Sport and Communities. Councillor Ferguson, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. It's my privilege as Cabinet Member for Culture, Sport and Community that at our first Cabinet meeting this evening of the municipal year, I'm presenting the Area Committee report. The Area Committees were established at the Council's AGM in May, and the whole purpose behind the Area Committees is for the first time in this Council's history to be able to give all members, all 42 members in all 14 wards across the borough, a real stake and a real opportunity to be able to make decisions for residents in their wards. Many of us have all experienced times where we've been elected, whether that's been straight into opposition or into administration, when residents across the borough have contacted us around specific projects and specific purposes that they want us to be able to pursue that are all valid in their own right and all things that we want to be able to support. However, the decision-making process has often been quite convoluted that has stopped and stalled that progress from being able to happen. So what we are seeking to be able to do tonight is establish 6 area committees that will be made up of representatives only from members in those wards that those area committees serve, with funding attached to those area committees to be able to make decisions for specific projects, specific grants and community groups within those respective wards that can apply for funding to make and to be able to put in place measures and activities that will strengthen and deliver for the residents within those wards that those members are seeking or that those members serve. There are 2 pots of funding. There is the Believe in Basildon Fund and the Community Priority Fund that ward members will be making decisions on. The 6 area committees will be, and already are, properly constituted committees within the Council's governance structure. They all have chairs and vice chairs that were approved at the Council's AGM within May. What we are seeking to be able to do tonight is put the real mechanics of how those area committees will be able to operate and what they'll be doing going forward. Following and pending Cabinet approval this evening, each of the area committees will be able to have up to 3 meetings that are being held in public. They are not public meetings, but they will be held in public, where members of the public will be able to tune in, as they are tonight, listening to the webcasting and being able to see the decisions that those ward members within their wards are making, be able to listen to the discussions, and those area committees will then be able to fund specific projects that are taking place within those wards. The area committees have been designed to be able to work cross-party so that we can really seek to serve the residents across the borough in a cross-party and collaborative spirit. And with that in mind, in advance of the area committees being established and the governance arrangements being put in place for them, I met with the chairs of the area committees from all parties last night on a Teams call to be able to discuss the area committees, be able to go through the report, and was very pleased with the overwhelming support from all committee chairs that were able to attend and their enthusiasm for the area committees project as well. And I thank all of those for their contributions. As the meeting was held on Teams last night, I will summarise some of the discussions that came up for complete transparency purposes and some of the questions that arose, which were valid questions that gave us further food for thought and really important why we have acted in this cross-party and collaborative way across the board. First of all, want to be able to explain the governance arrangements so that when area committees do make decisions, any spend that they will commit to at their meetings, they will go through the Council's normal governance arrangement process. So area committees will be able to make decisions on spend. That will follow the normal council way and normal governance processes with criteria of who is able to apply for funding, what those projects are to be able to be used for, and then be able to go forward for funding. I was asked a question by the Leader of the Opposition last night around the area committees being supported by a comms campaign to make sure that all members across all wards are being able to give that message and be consistent with our messaging to residents. And I thank him for that question. I've been working with the comms team in advance of last night's meeting and following today to be able to make sure there is a comms campaign that is going out to support the area committees, and we'll also be working with the area committee chairs going forward to be able to make sure that the priorities of the area committees from a communications perspective are being met. I was also asked a question around the taxi forum and the rail forum and how they will be reporting into the area committees. The bus and rail forums will still continue to be able to, will still continue to report into the area committees. Quite likely is that residents will want to go to their area committee chairs with issues, or they may have issues around bus or transport that relate to specific areas of the borough. So it is right and proper that the bus and rail forum are invited and the area committees are constituted to be able to allow that to be able to happen. The taxi forum, I will be seeking to be able to bring a paper to full council in September that will reconstitute the taxi forum in a way that serves the residents across the borough and serves the purpose of the taxi forum to be able to exist. But as that is a council decision, that will be coming forward in September. I was also asked a question last night around the funding commitments, that the commitments of the area committees will be made within this financial year, and we will commit to the funding that is being given within the report tonight. And as the report seeks to do tonight, sets out the future position of the area committees being able to go forward. And I've also committed to being able to meet with the area committee chairs at regular intervals throughout the municipal year to make sure the area committees are supported and ultimately delivering for residents. Leader, I'll sum up before we open up to questions by saying I think this is a really exciting opportunity for residents across the whole borough to be able to contact their local councillors that can have a real stake in the decision making of this borough. It's devolution working in Basildon by making sure that those that are most able to make decisions that affect their residents are able to do so. And I commend this paper to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. I'm going to open this up to the opposition group leaders first. Anyone wish to speak? Councillor Baggott.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'd like to reiterate what Councillor Ferguson said and thank him for his time last night. He'd actually answered a number of questions that I did have, and he answered them all. So I'm not going to waste the Cabinet's time now by just reiterating the questions and the points that were raised, and I know he's raised one. However, there are two things which I do think should be addressed. I mean, the first is a minor one, but it's the issue of the bus rail forum and the taxi forums being morphed into the area committees. I cannot see, I wasn't convinced last night, I'm still not convinced that that is a workable proposition when you have a look at the sort of inquiries that historically, having sat on each of those forums in the past, that you get. And I'm not too sure how the answering of questions that are going to be raised and the interface between the representatives that sit on those is going to work in the current system. But I'm prepared to be corrected, and I reserve the right to come back here and say I told you so when it all goes horribly wrong. What I am concerned more so, though, is, and it's in the report with regards to the budget. Now, I appreciate that you cannot, you've got to have to rob Peter and pay Paul for all the initiatives that you're doing. At the end of the day, there is a finite pot, we know that. We know the resources the council are tight. But the reallocation of resources to the play area budget of £180,000, I'm hoping officers would be able, or I'm guessing it would be an officer, can tell me which of the particular play projects that are earmarked for this year that are now going to be cancelled or curtailed as a result. For instance, is it going to be Pound Lane and Dickens Drive in Langdon Park? Will it be the Barnstable project in St Martin's? Will it be Partridge Green or Ashfields in Pitsea? Or will it be the Wick in Wickford Park? Because I'm sure that many members would agree that while it is laudable to have area committees, while it's laudable to have something which spreads a bit of a pot around each part of the borough, if that's at the expense of children being able to get out and actively play and for parents to be able to see their children playing in safety and in their communities, that isn't necessarily laudable. And I'm just curious as to which of those projects is going to be ceased. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baggott. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and may I thank Leader of the Opposition for his questions. I think I dealt with the issue of the bus and rail forum in my explanation earlier on, but I will happily reiterate the point that I think the right and proper place for issues around bus and rail being discussed is within the area committees. Residents might have specific issues that are local to their ward that they want to be able to raise with their local ward councillors, that then might be able to, or might want to invite bus and rail companies into their specific area committee to be able to ask questions. This is also an evolving process. There may also be opportunities for that to develop throughout. The taxi forum, we will seek to bring a paper to full council in September that will look at re-establishing the taxi forum in the appropriate mechanism. In regards to the budget, I can confirm that no areas of the play area review are expected to be impacted. We do not anticipate any changes to our plans going forward. In fact, if members of the committee of each of the area committees are minded to be able to utilise the area committee funding to strengthen play area reviews, the ward members in those respective wards will have the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Just also to add to this before I bring Councillor Baggott back in, I have said as well that I am looking at the December full council as a kind of a mid-year review of this. So we will use that that line in the sand to look at whether or not these area committees are doing too much, and whether or not the bus and the rail forum merging into them is working, or if it isn't working, but also get a steer at that junction as well around whether or not they could do more, and whether or not they could take on more budget as we prepare for the February budget setting process as well. So look, it's a work in progress. There's 42 of us. It's up to us to make it work if we want to make a success of it, to try and put as much power and responsibility down into the hands of ward members as possible, and we'll come back and you can say I told you so if you like, and that is your prerogative to do so. I also think it's really important on this point that we are clear that the funds that are being used for this are not to replicate what town and parish councils could be doing. They have sizable budgets, our town and parish councils, sizable. And I would be looking at the area committees to see whether or not you can work in partnership with your town and parish councils to see how you could get more bang for your buck. But I don't see there being an overlap. And it sounds like, from Councillor Baggott's contribution tonight, that he might just be coming round to the idea of a youth zone. Because if he is as big on children having somewhere to go, something to do, someone to talk to, watch this space, Councillor Baggott, because I think you'll like what's coming later in the municipal year. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Leader. Can I just say, first of all, on the rail forum and bus forum, I believe that should be with the area committees. I'll tell you why. I've sat on the bus forum and the rail forum. Some were quite good meetings. They're not held in public. No minutes are ever issued, and the public never know what actually went on at those forums. I think to have representatives of Greater Anglia, Network Rail and the bus companies to come to Wickford Area Committee would be beneficial to the people in Wickford and Oak Bridge, etc. On the question of funding, I welcome the funding for the area committees. I've read through the eligibility, and I'll just pick up from what you said about town and parish councils, because my view is that we should not be funding, it appears to be so in what I read here, that we shouldn't be giving grants to parish, town councils or even the county council to do some stuff for them. I think by this type of organisations it says, I think it's pretty clear, but it may need to be made a little bit clearer, because Wickford will be the worst off, because there's 5 parish or town councils within the area committee range, and this side of the A127 there's only Pitsea with 1 parish council. Billericay I think's got 3, so I think we need to be careful how we work out what grants we give. So the initial conception I'm happy with, except I want to see it go further. I think some of the Pride team, we should have some responsibility for the Pride team work in our areas. Perhaps looking at the street cleansing arrangements. I'm not saying we should dictate, but there's things which I think an area committee could have some more, not necessarily control over, but access to how we do it. to ensure we make the best job of things. It's early days, and I would hope that will be in the plan come for next year, once we've learnt the lessons of good and bad, whatever, over the next 8 months. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Before I bring Councillor Ferguson back, obviously we're going to come to a report later on tonight around the budget setting and how we are going to involve members in setting the budget for next year. And what he has described in relation to prior teams, etc., is something that clearly, when I say the area committees could potentially be doing more, that is something that we would need to look at. But I'm asking a lot of Mr. Hendry and his team at the moment. I'm not going to ask any more of them this side of that budget. But Councillor Ferguson, if you want to come back on any of that.
Thank you, Leader, and may I thank Councillor Harrison for his remarks. I completely agree with him on the Bus and Rail Forum. I think when those meetings have been held in public previously, I think they've been very, very successful, and I think members of the public have learnt a lot from being able to feed in their questions. We've also taken on our responsibility seriously to be able to feed in our questions to bus and rail operators across the borough, and I think being able to make those decisions at the most appropriate level with really ward and area specific issues across the borough, I think is really important. Like I said in my opening speech this evening, I think the area committees is a really exciting way of being able to make decisions across the borough, and I think there was a really good opportunity for chairs across the area committees to be able to work collaboratively, to work with their individual ward members around the role of the area committees, and look forward to being able to strengthen that and welcome ideas from all committee chairs and all members as we go forward.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a very good idea. I did table such a motion with advice from the mother of the council of area committees, but we got to look. It got dragged into looking at planning. It never had gone anywhere, and it died a death. But this is what the public really want, because we have this north-south, the 127 divide. We're in power, right? And when we start to do things, parties north of the 127 not having a pop because they don't get right. Two blokes have spoken. We'll have a growl, and when they're in power, and we see things done up there that aren't done south of the 127, we quite understandably have a growl. So we've all got that pot of money, so that just solves the argument. And that one day, whenever the Tories ever come back into power on this council, hopefully many, many moons from now, but they keep to this because I think this is fair. This saves the argument. So the one I'll be chairing, the Wesley Heights, where I'm elected to, our first priority is getting a footpath put through Kingswood Park to serve the residents there, because they get you access to Park, Club Kingswood, Basildon Golf Course. There is no pavement, so nice weather like this, it's safe to cut across the grass, but when the rains do come, you can't cut across the grass. You're walking down virtually a single width highway. Yes, cars can pass each other, but it might as well be single width. There's no pavement. Grant gave me a price some months ago of £30-something thousand, but with the previous system, unless you're in power, you can't get that into the budget. So it's good to have these area committees. I also like this bit, which is fair. Now, each area committee's got a different number of wards, but with the, let me just check the correct title, the Community Priority Fund, yes, that's right, it's 140 grand and it's divided by ward. So with my area committee, it's a two ward area committee, so they'll only get 20 grand, but for ones that have got 3 wards, and naturally they're parish and towns, they get 10 grand per ward. So I think that's fair. So they can't grumble at that. And it was said earlier by the Leader of the Opposition about play equipment. Now, before the Greater Vanchill Drive area was added to Nevermain, I had residents stop me saying, could we have a dog bin in Collingwood Road because people are using damaged post office pouch box? And I went, well, if we can flip the council, we could do that. And for 350 quid, I shouldn't be harassing Councillor Blake. When he was a cabinet member for the portfolio that Councillor McGovern holds, I shouldn't be harassing him for 350. I shouldn't be harassing you for 350. You know, Councillor Kevin Blake introduced the bins. You're dealing with the bins, Councillor McGovern, and I shouldn't be wasting your time harassing you for a dog bin. It's crazy. You know, cabinet members are there to do a role, and they're harassing someone for a dog bin. It's just madness. And next to it was play equipment that residents down there are heartily upset about. And I might not be able to do it with the first year's worth of area committee, but I certainly will be using it in the second year, because I got a question answered earlier that if there's any underspend, it will go over to the next year, and then we'll get that play equipment installed in Collingwood Road, which was regrettably removed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Any other members? No. Okay, so the recommendations are on page 41. Let's move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you, members. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Agenda item 7 on page 57 of your agendas, the Public Space Protection Order Annual Review. Councillor McGeorge.
Thank you very much, Leader. A borough-wide public spaces protection order, and I will call it the PSPO from now on because that's just too long, for Basildon Town Centres, parks and open spaces was introduced on the 1st of April 2022, lasting until the 31st of March 2025. This is to tackle antisocial behaviour in the public spaces. An annual review takes place to review the effectiveness of the order and to consider evidence of emerging antisocial behaviour trends and where further locations or prohibitions would add value to combating the impacts these behaviours have on our communities. 3 issues have emerged this year. We need to seek residents' views to support a variation of the order. These are: prohibit the use of a bicycle in a manner that causes or is likely to cause alarm, harassment or distress to another person borough-wide. Prohibit the use of equipment that could amplify noise in the Basildon Town Centre. Prohibit use of e-bikes borough-wide and specifically Basildon Town Centre. The annual review of the PSPO demonstrates the positive impact this is having on reducing crime and antisocial behaviour in our public spaces and provides a level of reassurance to residents with the visible patrols carried out to monitor and police the order. I'm therefore proposing a 6-week consultation takes place to seek residents' views on varying the order as details in the report and whether they support the extension of the order for a further 3 years. I will bring back a report to Cabinet for further consideration once the consultation has concluded.
Thank you, Councillor McGeorge. Any officer want to come in on anything? No? Happy? Okay. Open this up to the opposition first. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Leader. Can I just say that I think there's a couple of areas which we need to look at. One of them is Wickford High Street area. There's been tremendous problems over recent months with activities going on the High Street. Mr Hendry is aware of some of the activities. We've had conversations about certain vandalism and what goes on in the High Street with horses and traps in the area. And we look around and see what's happening, and the request has been made through me as leader of the Wickford Independents that we should try and get a protection order on the High Street area as well. And the other area is Shopgate Park, because at the Parish Council only a week ago they've actually started to use a private organisation to do drive rounds because of some of the antisocial behaviour taking place, some of it in the park, some of it in the surrounds of the park. So I think we should be looking at these areas as well, because if you recall, first of all we left Nevenden Park out of the orders, and then that moved problems from Cranfield Park to Nevenden Park. So they work out where there's no order, let's go there. So can that be looked at, please?
Councillor McGeorge.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I'm sure the officers will be able to look, because obviously this is an evidence-based document that's created, so I'm sure I can get the officers to have a look, see what reports we've had from that area and see if that can be included in there.
It's long.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, just please rest assured that we are considering Wickford as part of an alternative legal measure at the moment. We're collating evidence with regards to the issues that have been reported in the town centre, working alongside the Essex Police Business Crime Team. So we are in the process of working with our legal team as to the best route forward, which may or may not be a variation within the PSPO, but it's not been forgotten. We're working towards that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, do you want to come back?
Can I come back? Because talking about this, Councillor Ball and myself have met the community police officers and some of the other police officers 2 or 3 times recently, and this is an issue they are concerned about as well and did ask us if we would raise it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baggott.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank the officers that work on this and have continued to work on this throughout. I know they're very, very dedicated and absolutely committed to this. Of course, I should point out that it was our administration that brought the PSBOs in the first place, and it's good to see that this administration is building upon that and actually treating the issue of law and order in the way that it should be, which is seriously. Because if you, leader, are going to achieve the ambitions you have for the town centre, what we must have is where the public feels safe to go into the town centre and actually enjoy whatever facilities there are there. And the PSBO goes a long way to actually achieving that. It also goes a long way to stop the misery of residents across the borough when we've had, for instance, the boy races, which was the inaugural start for putting a PSBO in the first place, because, as you know, having represented Pidsey, the boy races, in the summer, create huge amounts of misery did create huge amounts of misery for the residents there, and that was the reason for initiating the thing in the first place. But to summate, I would just like to say thank you to the administration, as they are, for the work that they're doing and continuing to do and building on what we initiated.
Thank you, Councillor Baggott. Any other Cabinet member? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll forgive me for calling you Chairman rather than Leader, but I'm sure you understand. I draw members' attention to page 70 and item 5, that use of a motor vehicle in any location identified in Schedule 3 of this order without reasonable excuse or express permission of the council. Now I go to the pages that I can speak first hand because they're in my ward. Page 80, the Kingswood Open Space, and also page 81, which has got Swanmead and Vangill Drive Open Space. Yes, it is nice to have a public space protection order, but this public space protection order with regards to motorbikes, my colleague who lives on the Woodlands estate behind me, Councillor Eddie Murphy, that public space protection order may as well be an ashtray and a motorbike. Because when I've been round there, residents complain. I had emails Monday from residents, so as Councillor Murphy and Councillor Harkin. We contact the police and it's like, we will get back to you. And I don't want to badmouth the police. I don't know what's going on in the police station. But residents on a nice warm summer's evening should be able to sit out in the garden and enjoy themselves, apart from these idiots who should really be buying themselves an hairdryer, not riding around these stupid bikes. Then can I also add, because as a Cabinet member you have a duty across the borough, and I don't say it because it's next to my house, I spoke to Councillor Blake before this meeting started because we don't live too far apart. 3 o'clock in the morning Saturday, or Sunday, whatever you want to call it, there's 3 idiots on a motorbike waking everybody up. Now, this needs to be a lot more when it comes to motorbikes than an ashtray on a motorbike. Right? Residents should be able to call, we need action. Moons and moons ago, what the police did do when there was problems behind Seaview Avenue in my ward is they sent up a drone, they followed the little darlings back to where they lived in Oldwick. Next morning, while they were still in their bed, tapped on the door and they said to the parents, "Are these your children, your little darlings?" "Yes." "Where's the bike?" "Seized." Now that's what should be going on. Because, as I say, you can have these public space protection orders, unless there's enforcement, it's an ashtray on a motorbike.
Thank you, Councillor. I think Councillor Ferguson and I were at an event with the now Home Secretary not too long ago where dirt bikes and other things are about to be crushed, apparently, according to the new Home Secretary. So we will wait in eager anticipation for that. Councillor McGeorge.
Thank you. If I can just come back on the point with the bikes, I was actually in a meeting last night with Elaine and a local officer. The main issue with the bikes, the police are fully aware, they are doing everything they can. However, catching them is one problem because you will phone the police as soon as you get there, they are gone. And that is a real issue for the police. And the second issue they're having, we need meatier legislation from further up to enable more powers. So that's actually on my list. We're going to start lobbying. We need to get these stupid things banned.
Or give me the cheese wire.
No.
Brilliant. Thank you. Are there any other further comments on this from the Cabinet? No. In which case, the recommendations are on page 58. Move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 8 on page 113 is the Basildon Town Centre report, security report. Councillor McGeorge again.
Thank you very much. I apologise, I am going to cough during this. Firstly, on this one, I'd like to thank officers for pulling this together so quickly, because this was high on our priority and we have done some amazing work on here. So with our administration's ambitious plans to regenerate the town centre, it is vital that the council work with its partners to ensure the continued safety of residents, visitors and people working in the borough. The council have a duty through the Community Safety Partnership to coordinate the delivery of actions and projects to reduce crime and disorder within the borough. As such, the town centre location is already a key focus for joint actions and high visibility patrols. This report provides details of the security arrangements currently in place and the key deliverables of the CSP action plan in relation to the town centre. Through regular community safety surveys and contact with us as councillors, residents and the people working in the town are telling us they do not feel safe in the town centre. It is proposed that this is explored in more detail through a focused consultation aimed at people living, working or visiting the town centre. Although reported crime figures in the location are reducing, there is clearly still more to do to change residents' perceptions and encourage a greater number of visitors. I'm recommending that an independent security audit is carried out in the Basildon Town Centre to identify any improvements. The outcome of the Town Centre consultation will also feed into this audit. I'll present the outcomes again once this has been completed for further consideration.
Brilliant, thank you. I'll open this up to the opposition first. Do any of the group leaders wish to speak? Councillor Baggott.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, absolutely, it's laudable again, and building on what we were talking about in the previous item, it really is important that we get the security and make people feel safe in the town centre. What I do have a concern, though, is, and there's a bit of a trend that's coming through with the reports of this administration, this idea that there's some sort of magic pot of money that you're going to keep dipping into. Here we have a procurement, you don't know what it's going to cost, you want to do it, the ambition is absolutely there, but exactly the same way that, and I love Councillor Ferguson, but I still don't believe that he's going to fund £180,000 and not actually affect the play equipment anywhere. It's where this money is going to come from. And there's going to come a point where this administration is going to have to fess up and start to actually commit to where they're going to take the money from for these new initiatives, because keep saying it'll be met from existing budget. This is an existing budget that you'd think we'd got billions and billions of pounds to spend, the amount of things you've taken out from the existing budget so far. So I am concerned about the financial implications on something that we don't know yet what the procurement's going to cost, we don't know what it's going to look like, and this ultimately is the taxpayers' money.
Thank you. Councillor McGeorge.
Thank you very much. This audit is not costing the council anything. There is funding available, so from the results of this audit we will see where we need CCTV, we will see where we need more patrols. There is funding available from the government, there's funding available from partners. You cannot put a price on people's safety.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is this unfortunate reputation of our town centre. Many moons ago when I started Together for Safer Communities, I had a resident contact me who was a bar manager at the, what's that alcoholic venue above the Lloyd's Bank now in the town centre. You go up in the lift. The Edge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And on a Monday night there were an evening for disabled people, and yobs were coming along, vandalising the lift so the people in the wheelchair couldn't go, and other draggings, and I'm being really diplomatic, were making horrible sounds, really being abusive to these mentally disabled children and physically disabled children. It was disgusting. And thankfully we had 2 special coppers turn up. Oh my word. I wouldn't like to be 18 and giving them grief. I think I'd end up in A&E after falling over a pavement. They were big units, they were really good coppers, these specials. And it sorted that problem out. But what I'm alluding to, those teenagers who are now adults, would they want to come to Basildon Town Centre? Because they was given grief because of their background? Not really, no. We've spoken many times, the Conservative Alliance administration, about the nighttime economy, and it's all right if you're a bloke walking through the town, any little word but start again, they tripped over the pavement, so you tell the police. But for ladies or vulnerable people, would you want to walk through that town centre on your own to see the new cinema when it opens? Not really. So what this is about is identifying what the problem is. Now, we know what the problems are, but we have to go to outside bodies to make the case, like the Police Crime Fire Commissioner and other bodies. But unless you've got that evidence to take there to say why we need the money, it's not like we've got some wuffians, you know, wearing trainers walking around the high street in Braintree or somewhere like that. These are real Herberts causing people misery and making people's lives a misery. Those businesses in the town pay a lot of business rates, and this is about supporting them. Because if they don't pay their business rates, where do we find that extra money from when you've got empty shops? That's the question. So I'd like to thank you, Mr Chairman, to Councillor McGeorge for her work on this issue.
I'm going to come to Councillor Harrison and then Councillor Yacoub. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Leader. I've read this report and I think it's excellent. I'll tell you why. When we had a committee system, I was your Vice Chairman on the Regeneration Committee, and we had certain plans to regenerate all the town centres. Now, it's only my view, I think over the last 3 years, regeneration has stood still a little bit. And doing this now in preparation for hopefully what will regenerate Basildon Town Centre, I think is important, because Councillor Smith is quite right. People at the moment do not like coming to Basildon Town Centre. They do not like coming here. And we need to change that. And this is a start of a process to change it. I'm not encouraging people from Wickford to come to Basildon, but I think Basildon is important as a borough. And the regeneration of Basildon, that will bring about the regeneration of Wickford, Langdon, Pitsea, because there's got to be a purpose in regenerating our towns. And I'm hopeful that if we kickstart things today, you know, I might not be here when you finish them, but let's get it started for God's sake.
Thank you. Councillor Yacoub and then come back.
Thank you, Chairman. The Town Centre Security Plan, as presented by Councillor McGeorge, is a critical development that I believe our residents and our businesses desperately need. As the ward member for St Martin's, I have heard firsthand about the issues we face. Motorbikes causing chaos across Eastgate, antisocial behaviour and a sharp rise in shoplifting offences. I mean, the report highlights that there has been a staggering 46% increase in shoplifting. It's an unacceptable situation. But by using things like CCTV more effectively with a secure link for police access, we can address crime as it happens. And by prioritising the presence of community wardens, we can deter antisocial behaviour and we can empower businesses to engage with the council and the police so that we can address the challenges they face. Unlike the previous administration, we refuse to take an isolated approach to tackling crime. We won't claim to be tough on crime whilst neglecting the real issues. A derelict town centre, lifeless at night, only invites criminal activity. Our strategy will integrate security improvements with the broader regeneration of Basildon Town Centre. We understand that combating crime requires a holistic approach. We will design out crime and create an environment where crime can't thrive. As footfall increases, this security improvement programme will proactively address the new emerging challenges. And the launch of the Town Centre Hub during the summer holidays will kickstart this initiative, providing a safe space for public engagement with police, with local partners and with businesses. With these changes in place, I'm hopeful that we can create a town centre where everyone feels safe.
Thank you, Councillor Yacoub. As a St Martin's ward councillor as well, I think this is critically important. I think we are, as a council, investing an awful lot of time, energy and effort into the regeneration of Basildon Town Centre. A lot of money has been spent over the last 10, 15 years on acquiring sites and doing work. But we know that at this moment in time, Basildon is not a destination of choice for a lot of people. And whether it is midday or midnight, we need to make this a place that is safe and welcoming for people. A few weeks ago, on the 5th of July, Labour councillors met at the Orletto Lounge for what we hoped would be a victory party. And it turned into a bit of a wake. But it was on a Friday evening, and I think we sat there and I looked out over our town centre from around 8 o'clock at night to midnight, and I think I must have seen 10 people walk through our town centre on a Friday night. Our restaurants and bars empty, people not turning up, not using those facilities. And we can put a cinema next door if we like, but unless people feel safe to come and visit this place, they are not going to survive with the current footfall that comes through our town centre. And there is an issue here, and we even see it in some parts of the report, where the police rhetoric is not matching the public's reality. And time again, we're being told that crime is falling and everything is... I mean, we must have been in an election year when these reports were drafted, because you cannot speak to a resident in Basildon that would believe that. So we've got a job to do in order to change it. On the point around the financing, I think it's an important point, because I don't think that the burden for this should fall on Basildon Council. I often spoke the last time I was here about the fact that there are 55 different landowners in this town centre. Now we've reduced that, and we've acquired a lot of land, and we've become a fairly large landowner in our town centre. But the Eastgate is a big player in this, so we know they've got a lot of land, and Galliard Homes, who own those guys. The other developments that are coming forward as well, they've all got a role to play in making sure that their investments turn out to be successful, and the town centre from the very start of this regeneration, and that's what we're in now, the very start of it, that it is a success, and that will feed into the long-term success of it. So work is underway. Mr. Sparks is beginning some of this work to look at what we can do to ensure that the cost of whatever the audit comes back with can be met collectively by multiple landowners, and their negotiations and discussions that we need to have. Most places would have an established bid, a business improvement district. We obviously are moving with that in Billericay and Wickford, but that is very much in its infancy in Basildon, so we need to look at what the alternatives might be. I think that linked to that, the last time we were here and we had a community warden scheme, what was really good about that was we were able to see the live data pretty quickly coming in. The residents felt they could text the number and they could report crime quickly. There doesn't seem to be that same data capture this time, and talking to some of the businesses in our town centre, they don't even report a lot of the crime that is taking place at the moment, because there is such a breakdown in that trust that anything can get done. So we need to figure that out. But I also hope that what this audit will do is it will give us the basis for Miss Lyons and her team to then be looking at what do the 106s in terms of public realm improvements need to be looking at. How much do we need to be levying on lighting, pathways, entrance and exits to the town centre, parking, all of those things, which gives us more ammunition when we are going to task with developers over what those 106 needs to be. So I think this is important. Obviously, Councillor McGeorge has moved this, but it crosses into regeneration, it crosses into the jobs and skills, it crosses into data, it crosses into a number of different areas of the council, and we need to get this right. I think this is a really, really important thing. I think it should have happened 3 years ago, but we need to get on with it now, and we need to make it work. So I think it's a really good report. Thank you to Councillor McGeorge and officers for bringing it forward. I don't know, Mel, do you want to come back on some stuff?
Thank you very much. I think you've stolen my thunder on a lot of what you just said, but it's fine. I'd like to thank Councillor Harrison. I'm glad that you're in support of this. And as you say, we need to start somewhere. And Basildon Town Centre is the heart of our borough. This is where we should start. We'll get all our eggs in our basket. And as others have alluded to, we've got the cinema opening, we have got the Wetherspoons opening. These facilities are not going to get used if people don't feel safe. So let's make the town a safe place to be.
Brilliant, thank you. And also, it was nice to learn that everyone loves Councillor Ferguson in this report as well. Very good, which 99 more people had as well after South Basildon, but nevertheless. The recommendations are on page 114 of the report. Move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you, members, and feel free to leave if you don't want to sit here and listen to the rest of it. That is fine. Agenda item 9 on page 137 is the revision of planning application requirements for validation purposes. Councillor Brown, unfortunately, is not able to be here, so I will move the report. This is looking at setting out required documents for planning applications to ensure compliance with the existing legislation. The current list was last updated in 2016-17, and the new proposed list aims to reduce the invalid applications, and the public consultation to gather feedback will be underway. Ellie Hendry, thank you for coming along. You are at Cabinet tonight to potentially answer any technical questions that members may have. So let's begin, open this up. This is not my area of expertise, I have to be honest. Do we have any opposition leaders' questions? Very good. It's obviously not yours either. Any Cabinet members with any... Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Smith.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think for the benefit of anyone watching from home, we have a very capable planning team. So when they produce a report like this, we read it, don't see things we might like or do like. We know it's not worth arguing because we're going to look silly. So we have a competent planning team, and I think that this is why there wasn't much said about it tonight.
Very well said, Councillor Smith. Councillor Harrison, yes.
I did glance through it, not the detail, there's too much detail. Just ask the question, with the new government going to change all the planning laws, how is this going to be affected? I know you're not an expert.
TBC. I think, what are we now, day 12 of the Labour government? So we will bring it back if we need. I don't know if you've heard anything on the grapevine. No, no one has. So we will come back if there are any major changes and report it. The recommendation, members, is on page 138. Move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. It's unanimous. Thank you. Sorry that you had to give up your evening for that. I promise you it gets more exciting. Thank you very much. Agenda item 10 on page 209 is the appointment of directors to the council's company. This one's me. We have new directors that are proposed for Acorn House Developments, Basildon Borough Enterprises and Sempra Homes. This is necessary due to the departures of previous directors and to ensure the companies continue to support the corporate objectives of the council. And we have proposed the new directors based on relevant skills and expertise. Does anyone have any pressing questions on this item? Very good. The recommendations are on page 209. We'll move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. It's unanimous. Thank you, members. Agenda item 11 is the budget outturn report on pages 213 to 246. We have Mr. Sparks and Mr. Wilson here to answer any questions, but in the way of moving this report, it presents the council's outturn for 23-24 and the capital investment strategy. The report notes that there was a £1.5 million overspend from the previous administration in their budget in revenue, and the HRA had an almost £2 million underspend in its budget. The report also outlines the budget process and timetable for the 25-26 budget that we will be working towards. The key reasons for the overspend from the previous administration was around additional costs at the George Hurd Centre, the Langdon Centre, and lower income at the place in Pitsea. There was around about an £800,000 overspend in terms of the cinema site and the failure to get a move on with that site. We had around a £2.3 million overspend in the waste service. We had some underspends in housing and leisure and an overspend when it came to the regeneration of the Craylands estate as well. But we did also have, along corporate budgets and utilities and asset management, an underspend of around 1.4 million, and all that totals an adverse variance of around 1.5 million pounds. So in terms of some of the slippage that we have seen in the HRA, members will be aware of the ongoing issue at Brook House, which we will be no doubt debating at some point this year. The Council's debt position is detailed in the outturn as well, around 520 million at this moment in time, which is an increase under the previous administration last year of almost 40 million pounds, but we are not anywhere near the ceiling for our debt position. As things stand, the MTFS has a 1.7 million pound target for this year that was detailed in the budget back in February, and if we don't get a move on in terms of delivering some of those efficiencies and savings, there is a wider deficit that we would need to meet. So we've got some budget pressures that we know about. The waste service was one of those in the outturn. Temporary accommodation is a major pressure on the council's budget. The decision to withdraw the local plan, that has also had a negative impact on the council's finances, and then obviously we have things that are business as usual around changes to as we've all seen, I'm sure, in our own personal lives, huge changes in insurance costs and other things that are listed in the outturn report. Does either Mr. Sparks or Mr. Wilson wish to add anything at this stage? No, thank you very much, in which case I'm going to open this up for debate. And come to the opposition leaders first. Any opposition leader wish to speak? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I refer to page 231 and 232 on our investments? I'm quite proud of the fact that I was on one of the groups when we had a committee system in looking at some of these investments, particularly the 3 lease investments, which I think have proved quite good in producing income insofar as the council is concerned. And I think that strategy was very important, and I think it's improved by those 3 particular investments. On the other investments, the Stevenage, Bath, Tunbridge Wells, etc., I just posed the question of whether we should be looking at these to see whether we continue some or not, because the yield on a couple of them are lower than we would have wanted throughout when we set them up. And I think I would ask the question now, what is going to be the council's investment strategy here on?
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. So again, I'll bring Mr. Sparks or Mr. Wilson in a moment, but I think certainly since I've been back in this portfolio, it is a question that I've been asking around the direct investments and where they are at. As you can see on page 230, we have had a valuation of those investments at the moment, given what is happening with the what has happened with inflation rates over the last couple of years. That's obviously had a negative impact on where they are. So we have to make a judgment about what may or may not be an advantageous time to dispose of any asset that the council holds, and we'll, I would take advice on that at the appropriate time. In terms of the investment leases, of course, they are performing exceptionally well, bringing in around £3.1 million of profit at the moment. It's also always worth pointing out that it was Labour and Independents who put that through, and every single every single Conservative councillor voted against those lease deals coming into fruition. Where would we be now if we had listened to those gurus and hadn't pressed ahead with them? But I agree with you that we need to look at this whole investment portfolio. So obviously this is only the outturn report. We need to come back with a more detailed plan around the commercial, which will factor into the budget setting timetable. And obviously I'll be keen to work with members who were part of some of the good decisions that you're seeing in this report to get their feedback and ideas as we progress. We've obviously had our first all-member briefing just last week on the budget. We have more of those to come throughout the autumn and into the new year before we set the 25-26 budget. So I'm not in a position right now, just a few weeks in, to give you all of the detail on that, but know that the view of the administration is that when it comes to the budget, it cannot just be about cutting. It must also be about growing the revenue budget as well. That hasn't happened here for quite some time, as you're seeing in this report. It did happen previously under my leadership, so we will be looking at that as we go. Mr. Sparks first. Do you want to hear from Owen first? Or, okay. We'll come to Mr. Harrison, and then we'll come to...
Very, very briefly, the reason I raised it here is because other than scrutiny, there's no other opportunity to raise these issues, which I think is important for other members, like myself, who takes an interest in it, and I'm sure other people do as well. So it's something later on the Overview and Scrutiny Commission may want to look at, but I would hope that some of these things can be discussed more fully with all members rather than just the Cabinet, because how we invest money I think is important. And I think the way it was operated before, yes, there wasn't always agreement, but it was listened to, the advice was listened to, some we went ahead with, some we didn't. And I think we were very successful in what we did go ahead with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. You will be aware on page 241 of the schedule around the budget timetable setting. So there are many opportunities there for members to come along and scrutinise things, but we can always look at how we can put some additional informal meetings in for members to get involved. I have also asked for meetings to be set up with ward members to start a conversation with ward members about the budget and about what's going on in their areas, things that, as the portfolio holder, I need to be aware of, over and above the area committees and everything else that's going on. So I'm trying to create as many channels of communication for members to be able to come and speak to us about this as possible. But Mr. Sparks, I'll come to you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reassure members, obviously the guidance and regulations around commercial investments has changed recently in the last couple of years. As part of that, obviously it's best practice. We are required to regularly review our portfolio, disposal options, what we want to do with them. We are actually at the moment, we are in discussions with our commercial advisors about that strategy going forward, and that will come back to members in due course.
And that's the same advisors who were part of the lease deals as well. So we've got some continuity there. They're aware of what we've done before. So it's useful to have the same advice. Members, there are no other comments on the outturn report. So the recommendations are on 213, 214. Move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That is unanimous. Agenda item 12 on pages 247 to 251 is looking at the strategic approach and update on Basildon Town Centre regeneration. So this one is myself in 2020. That was the last time that a vision was set which aimed to look at the regeneration of Basildon Town Centre, including looking at new homes, commercial spaces, jobs, improved public spaces, much of which we've obviously discussed in relation to the town centre security plan tonight. What we are looking at now is refreshing that vision. We are 4 years on. There has been changes to the landscape, some of which Mr. Sparks has just alluded to in terms of what the council can and can't get involved in now, and where we might have an intervening approach in a different way. Obviously, I was at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee just this week talking about one of the steps that we've taken around the Westgate, but we are looking more generally here at how we can set that new vision, how we can update the master plan. We are master planned in the west end of the town where we have land assembly, and as the report makes clear, we will be bringing that master plan to the council in the latter half of this year, just after the autumn, so that we can all start to see what the plan for the Westgate is and what the art of the possible is in and around that site, which is a really exciting piece of work, a big development for us. I think it's talking to business, talking to investors. They're really excited about that. They see the council really starting to try and get the first domino to fall in terms of that regeneration, and they're buoyed by that, which is good. But we need to make sure that it fits into a wider vision and that it doesn't just become a piecemeal regeneration, that it is all coordinated. The way in which residents and businesses enter, exit, the journeys around the town centre. We've all talked about the moat that exists at the moment around Basildon Town Centre. You can drive around it never knowing that there is a town centre in the middle of it. And so we are planning to come back here in the autumn with that master plan that members can scrutinise and have a look at. As well, there may well be other opportunities that exist where we may want to intervene and we may want to work with some of our partners. We may want to go down the route, as I explained at the scrutiny on Tuesday night, at looking at potential joint venture partners and bringing in a JV partner to help us to realise some of this. There might be assets that we decide now that we want to dispose of, that they are no longer holding the value to unlock some of the potential. So that might be something that we look at as well. We also need to, I think, get to the bottom finally at some point of the BTCM issue that is a legacy of the Development Corporation here. You know, back in the 80s when Maggie didn't give us all the powers that she should have done, and we've ended up in the position that we are in now, where we have random covenants on bits of land in our town centre. So that work is underway as well, and we need to get to the bottom of that. And we need to keep having really kind of progressive, cooperative discussions with all of the developers and all of the people that are interested in investing, you know, huge sums of money in this town centre to bring it up to standard. We need to make sure that there is a vehicle in place for those guys to engage with the council positively, and that new master plan and vision will help us to do that. The good news is that none of this is new. We've been working on this for quite some considerable time. The aspirations of the administration to regenerate Basildon Town Centre did not come as a shock or a surprise to the officers, so existing resources are already working on this, and so the master plan on the Westgate that's coming forward can be met from the existing resources, and the team have got, you know, a really good team in terms of skills and expertise to be able to do a lot of this in-house now, which helps in terms of speeding some of this up. Ms Lyons, have I missed anything? No, very good answer. I'm going to open this up to questions then from group leaders. Does any group leader, opposition group leader, have a question? Councillor Baggott.
Not a question really, just an observation. I mean, I think it's good that there is a master plan that's being produced, but councillors that have been here for a while will know that there's been master plans produced across the borough consistently for years upon years upon years. And the real thing that makes a difference is when that master plan is then transformed to action and deliverables. And if I was a resident of Laindon right now, I'd be wondering, well, where's the master plan for us? Because they've been promised for over 20 years now a town centre and something that's been delivered, still not there. Now, I'm not blaming the administration, I'm not blaming you. What I am saying is that it is a reality that from Colonnade through to Swan, through to Sanctuary, you get huge amounts of people that come in and promise the earth to residents and then don't actually deliver at the end. And I'm just hoping that this particular cabinet and this administration will actually move from planning to actually delivering.
You tease me, Councillor Baggott. When you say the real thing that makes a difference, I'm going to hazard a guess it might be a Labour-led administration that might be the real difference to getting some of this actually over the line. Because you're right, there has been 20 years of failure. 17 of those were under a Conservative administration. 3 of them, which has led to a majority of this work moving in the way that it has, have been under Labour and Independent administrations. And I've got to say, I think we're pretty confident that the plans are going to move to action pretty quickly, as I've mentioned, in terms of master planning the Westgate and getting that out to a JV partner as quickly as we can. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it there and bring Councillor Ferguson in at this point.
Thank you, Leader, although you took the very same sentiments that I wanted to be able to share. So I'm very pleased to be able to be here as a St Martin's councillor tonight, as well as a cabinet member, to be able to support an administration that is ending the managed decline of our town centres and taking on that responsibility that for too long residents have had to cope with and put up with shops shutting down all around them without anywhere else to be able to go. We spoke earlier on tonight around the impact that crime has on our town centres. We have a dying town centre that, unless this administration, which it is grabbing the town centre by the horns and being able to put in place a vision that residents can get behind, we can then tackle the wider issues that are important. But it is really, really important that this council leads by example, which we exactly what we're trying to do in leading from our first council meeting tonight, first cabinet meeting tonight, to be able to set in time a process and a time period of that vision coming to life that residents, businesses, developers can get behind, that will ultimately give us the town centre that we can be proud of and that our residents deserve. I was going to respond to the remarks by Councillor Baggott, but you summed them up very well. But as this is my first intervention since his earlier remarks, I never knew he was such a big fan, and I thank him for his support.
And before I bring Councillor Yagubin, I think this is a really important point. From the AGM to the acquisition of the Westgate to the first cabinet meeting, the administration cannot be any clearer about what the priority is, where we are going with this. 8 weeks in, we've been very, very clear that this town centre regeneration has to happen and be delivered, and we're going to work to make that happen. Councillor Yacoub.
Thank you. I want to begin by acknowledging Councillor Callaghan for pioneering the Believe in Basildon vision and all the work that he has done in this space. When it comes to the regeneration of our town centres, there is a very clear pattern in this chamber. On one hand, you have the Conservative group opting for sticking plaster approach, throwing out arbitrary ideas like a cinema or an amphitheatre without any cohesive plan or vision to unify the town centre and breathe life back into it. And on this side, you have an administration that is prepared to make the tough political choices required. We are committed to taking back control of our town centres, and we're taking the time to create a master plan that future generations will benefit from. For example, let's just look at the regeneration of Langdon Shopping Centre, as you've mentioned, Councillor Baggott. The Conservatives have sat on this project for 3 years, making no progress. Within just 8 weeks of taking charge, we have confirmed a start date for highways works to begin on the 22nd of this month. It's going to begin on Monday. That's the difference. Looking at Westgate Shopping Centre, which we swiftly acquired within 5 weeks of being in administration, a decisive move to take charge of Basildon's regeneration and to protect it from encroaching London boroughs. As proposed in the report, we are now looking to integrate this new asset into our master plan to kickstart the town centre's renewal, timed very nicely with the upcoming 75th anniversary of the new town, adding a meaningful backdrop to this project. This cabinet is committed to reviving Basildon and is bolstered by the new government in Number 10. The difference is possessing the political will to make tough decisions that will improve the lives of our residents. And unlike the Conservative group, we will never shy away from that. So I'm very proud to be supporting the recommendations in this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Yacoub. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a ward member who boulders the town centre, there was this hilarious leaflet delivered in 2019. 2021 members will be familiar of. Apparently, I own 5,000 homes, and I had some very attractive lady stop me, far younger than me, saying to me, "Do you own all those flats in the town? Are you single?" I went, "No," and she was rather upset. And I said, "If you see the name Mr. C. Rimmer, that's the man to tug." And I start that from a nice, positive point of view. Up to the May 2021 ballot, if you get rid of a master plan, you stop tower blocks. That's the magic thing. You know, like Silver gets rid of a wolf and crucifixes keep away vampires. If you want to stop planning law, stop private developers using the full weight of planning law to build high-rise tower blocks. If you get rid of a master plan, the magic wand does it. 3 years later, residents have wised up very quickly. When planning applications were won on appeal, that has cost the taxpayer money. I think to date, with the more controversial ones, that was the equivalent of the maximum increase on Basildon's council tax. And all in all, it's become the worst form of populist politics. Tell people what they want to hear, count the votes and go, hands are tied, Gov, we did try. And it has left the town centre open to speculation by all sorts of creatures. I won't say the better ones, but the very worst are like vultures. but now we have a council in place. I don't know if you can say, Mr Chairman, how much cheaper the Westgate purchase would have been. Oh, you can't, Mr Chairman. Well, people can check land registry details. That's in the public domain. We could have got it a lot cheaper last February, but that's not in the land registry domain. And that's money we could have saved. But the point is, we now are master planning one end of the town, and we can start making attractive options. The next important part of this, again, the worst kind of populist politics is, if people don't want houses built on Greenbelt, what do? Bin the local plan. That'll protect every bit of Greenbelt. And unfortunately, residents across the borough are discovering it to their misfortune that if you don't have a local plan in place, the vultures come down, swoop up the farmland and Greenbelt and submit planning applications, and the ward members can fight to the bitter end, but planning law is planning law. We don't have a full 5-year land supply. By working on this town centre, we can help to fight various Greenbelt parcels in this borough by showing a proper plan with that town centre. So our planning officers and ward members, sorry, someone's phone, can make a sensible argument. And the final point is, private landlords are turfing out their tenants because they can get far better rents. They come to this council saying, please can you rehouse me? With the housing benefit, it doesn't cover what private landlords want in rent. So we have options. As a Cabinet Member for Housing, if an option comes up in the town centre of acquiring flats to take our own people off the housing waiting list, or first-time buyers looking to put their foot in the property ladder, buy a flat in the town. When they've got kids, look at buying a house in Kingswood or Lee Chapel South. There are people, Councillor Harrison, who've bought flats in Cherrydown and they've moved to Kingswood and Lee Chapel South, so I see the changes to the electoral register. So look, I think it's time for grown-up politics and we get on with it. But one thing I disagree with you, Mr Chairman. The reason why Mrs T put in those sort of covenants was the Labour Party still had the shadow of Michael Foot over them. And unfortunately, we were known as Moscow upon Thames. Yeah, so she had to put those sensible things in. But now the Labour Party's got moderate leadership here with yourself and nationally. You are quite right to criticise those, but do remember the shadow of Michael Foot.
I don't think anyone in the Labour Party would accuse me of being a Michael Foot. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I fully support these recommendations. If I had a vote, I'll be voting for them. I think it's important that a start is made. And can I say, the target of getting something done by the last quarter of this year, I think is brilliant, because when I was appointed to the chairmanship of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, I went back through the last couple of years looking to see what had gone on, to see the sort of thing that happened. And all I can say, this is something where there's a target set already, and I've already put in the work programme for December if we can scrutinise what's going on this. And that is to do something fairly quickly. Otherwise, a lot of the stuff on scrutiny previously has been too far off in my view. But can I just remind Councillor Baggott on master plans? I remember the Conservatives produced a master plan for Wickford. It was there for 2 months before they granted planning application for something that wasn't in the master plan, and that's that 6-7-storey monstrosity on the Reef Road in Wickford. So the master plan in Wickford actually lasted about 2 months because they already broke what they'd planned. And that is the problem with a master plan. People have got to stick to it. I agree with Councillor Baggott on that, but you can't criticise others for trying to do it if you couldn't do it yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Power.
Thank you. As Cabinet Member for Jobs, Skills and Local Economy, I want to welcome and support this holistic approach to the town centre regeneration, together with all of the work we have put forward tonight around town centre safety and the regeneration plans of the town centre. We want to create a safe and attractive place for residents and people to live and work here. So growing the economy in this way and attracting and creating new jobs, whether it's creative and tech or other industries, we need to work with our existing businesses and those that we want to work in and around Basildon. And as Councillor Harrison pointed out earlier, by starting here in the town centre, this will create a ripple effect across the whole borough, alongside the work starting in Langdon, we can ensure that the rest of our towns follow suit with hopefully future master plans that we will deliver on.
Very good. Thank you. There are no further speakers on this item. The recommendations are on page 248. We'll move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. It is unanimous. Thank you, members. Thank you, Ms Lyons. Agenda item 13 on page 253, almost an hour and a half in, is the one we've all been waiting for, the waste strategy service options. Councillor McGarren.
Thank you. I'll come to the report and what it means for the residents of Basildon in a moment, but it would be wrong of me to not start with an update on how we're already delivering, and so it's only right that I start with a brief update on Crunch Month. For those that don't know, thanks Kerry. For those that don't know, this is a 5-week project to allow residents right across the borough the opportunity to get rid of any accumulated black sacks and bulky waste. It also sees our Pride teams deployed in key locations across the borough to remove waste that has accumulated over the weeks and months, causing a blight on our estates. It's fair to say that week 1 of the Crunch was a spectacular success, with thousands of residents making use of the service and a massive 37 tonnes of waste collected. As will be the case for the next 4 weeks, there were 5 locations, 1 in each of the towns of the borough, and they were all incredibly busy. It would also be remiss of me if I did not say a big thanks to the crews who staffed the Crunch at short notice. They couldn't have been more helpful. They worked incredibly hard with great humour, and they were a credit to the borough, quite frankly. I look forward to saying hello to them again this Saturday and even lending a hand. Although last week was a reminder, if anyone needed, that I'm not as young as I used to be, that's for sure. I would also like to thank James Henry and his team for the sterling work they did in getting the Crunch up and running in such a short period of time, so efficiently. So can we have more of the same this week and for the 3 weeks afterwards, please? That would be great. In terms of the report itself, I don't need to say too much, but one thing I would like to say is a minority of residents, egged on by Conservative councillors, have tried to make play of the fact that there have been no announcements on a new waste strategy during the general election period. Whilst I realise some of the Conservative group do get a little confused from time to time, I'm sure even they know full well we could not make policy announcements during the general election period. But that did not mean a lot of work was not taking place. We've been very clear we will bring back weekly black collections. Thank you again. We have also been clear we will sort out the blue and white bag debacle, and we will listen to our residents so that we deliver a waste collection system that works for them. In order to fully understand how each of the options can be delivered, the report recommends that officers engage with Essex County Council to notify them of our potential options now, so we don't waste any time. What is crystal clear is the majority of our residents are far from happy with the overcomplicated waste collection system that was introduced by the previous administration in November 2023 and has never worked. We know our residents need us to get this right, and we will. We also recognise the importance of taking time to get it right and listening to our residents, so it's important that we consult with our residents properly to make the best decisions for their services in the long term. To support our residents in doing the right thing and putting pride back into our neighbourhoods, I will also be reviewing the Council's waste and recycling policy and making sure we are investing in our services through the in-cab technology programme, which could revolutionise the way we do things, improving services for our residents and supporting our hard-working collection crews across the borough. I will, of course, be reporting back on progress towards all the above aims on a regular basis, but this report fires the starting gun on a large body of work to come in this area to help provide neighbourhoods our residents can be proud of.
Thank you, Councillor McGarren. Councillor Coop.
Thank you. As you've alluded to, over the past week, the successful launch of the Crunch Month and the proactive efforts of our Pride teams clearing out our estates have really demonstrated our commitment to fulfilling the promise that we made to our residents regarding the return to weekly black sack collections. While the Conservatives will argue about costs, the true cost lies in residents feeling ashamed of their neighbourhoods due to poorly conceived policies on their part. Before we delve into figures, I think it's really crucial for residents to understand two key points. Firstly, the projected cost is a cautious estimate accounting for worst-case scenarios. And secondly, the Conservative forecasts were off the mark. They anticipated savings of £2 million from fortnightly collections, but realised only £1.4 million. Not to mention the strain on our customer service team and the alarming statistics. We had 1 month where we had 2,500 missed collections, and there have been 8,165 reports of dumped rubbish across the borough from this policy's rollout until May 2024. It's safe to say that this has been an absolute disaster. They called themselves an administration that would be keen to listen to what residents wanted, but then ignored the 61% of respondents in their 2023 consultation who outrightly opposed fortnightly collections. This policy presented by Councillor McGurran sets out a very clear pathway. Not only will we reverse their failed policy, we will ensure that we conduct a proper consultation to get every aspect right, from making sure that our recycling options don't resemble laundry bags to ensuring that we implement this change with the right technology. We will roll out in-cab technology to address missed collections as they occur, using AI and advanced analytics to strengthen the service that we provide to our residents. I want to thank Councillor McGurran for his dedication to this initiative, earning him the title King of the Bins, and the officers who are working hard to make this happen.
Thank you, Councillor Yacoub. Do any of the opposition group leaders wish to come in? Councillor Baggott.
I'm sure you're not shocked that I have something to say. I mean, it all sounds very good, doesn't it? But I tell you what, you guys will give Mandelson a run for his money on spin. I mean, the crunch, getting residents to do the job themselves, you mean? Something that's running for 5 weeks, out of 52 weeks. Councillor Yacoub talks about the fact we got our figures wrong, but what she doesn't mention is the fact that 1.4 million, yes, the 2 million target was actually based on a 65% recyclate rate. And as the report clearly shows, the recycling is moving in the right direction. We've actually improved upon the waste collection that was in place, that the whole point, which was to change a negative outflow of nearly £480,000 going into landfill to an increase of recyclate of the 65% rate, which would bring £2 million into the council, is all moving in the right direction. The report clearly shows that, in fact, that is the case. However, what we have here is a 20-page report with 10 recommendations, all waffle, effectively, and no offence to the officers that have produced it, because you put in your election literature, the only thing you put in your election literature was, we will bring back weekly collections and black sacks. So do it. Do you need 20 pages and 10 recommendations to do what you promised the residents you were going to do? So come on, you told the residents you were going to do it, make the decision now, get it done, forget the £3 million cost to the council, forget the fact what it can do to the council's finances, deliver on your promises, let you be judged by that delivery.
You can smell the fear, can't you, of an administration that's about to deliver on its big promise. Councillor McGeorge.
Thank you. Councillor Baggott is well aware any changes like this need to go to consultation. Yeah. We are making sure this consultation is as thorough as it needs to be. What do the residents want? Would they like bags? Would they like wheelie bins for their recycling? It was stated before by the opposition that if we went back to weekly collections, people wouldn't recycle. People are quite happily recycling. They just don't like the bags that blow away in the wind. Let's see what they actually want. We've got the policy really does need reviewing. You've got bins still being collected, I saw on Facebook, because they're 2 inches open. Why is this happening? It's been a little bit of a joke. This is going to get revised. The public are going to have a thorough consultation. They will get exactly what they want, and the bins will be coming back weekly.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the Leader of the Opposition, I need to correct one thing he said. I'd like to keep up with it because you're trying to be polite. What we said was, if you want the bins back, you've got to give the Tories the sack. Now, when I done the alternative budget, it was made crystal clear to me we have to give 6 months' notice to the Essex Interwaste Authority. Now, if we'd have done Baz Exit, we would need to talk to those muppets. We could deal with it. They talk about the cost of landfill. Well, as a keen Brexiteer, as you know, one of the reasons for doing Brexit was we wouldn't be paying EU landfill tax. And as a part of Boris's oven-baked hash, let's call it that, the EU landfill tax, how did he get rid of that? Took away the word EU and just made it a tax on local authorities, which is why local authorities have gone along with this unpopular policy. But local authorities were initially founded to protect the public health. I mean, can you imagine it? I mean, I have 2 pet cats and I've got to put their stuff in the black bin tonight. Honestly, I think after doing that I could get a job in a morgue, because the bodies there have got to smell fresher than the bins. It is gross. I mean, literally, I just open it up, I've got the Zoflora ready and waiting, just toss it in, then I can throw the bag in. It's disgusting. There is one environmental thing, as someone who's a keen critic of those rotten recycling bags, there is one environmental positive thing. It's supporting a frog in my front garden. Because it's so damp and scuzzy, I went out in the front garden, I thought, what the hell's that? That bag's moving, there's no breeze, and there's a big toad in it jumping around. So I thought, oh well, I'll let him sleep there. But that's the only environmental positivity I can see, because after the bin men have been, and it's not their fault, we've got fantastic crews working the bins, right? But when you've got this snaff thing, you've got to squeeze everything in. I mean, anyone who lives near me with a swear tin is going to fill it up when I put my recycling in. So I literally open the rotten thing with a pair of gloves, because I don't want to touch the disgusting thing, and I tip out these plastic bags I do in my kitchen to tip the rubbish as per the recycling in the bin, the bag. And I go, what effing moron come up with this effing stupid effing idea and a few other expletives, because those bags don't work. I will always advocate for disposable bags. They're hygienic. Yes, in this weather you can F and blind at the bags when you're recycling, but when it's damp, it's cold, it's windy, there's residents outside in all sorts of weather faffing around those recycling bags. You know, you either need disposable ones or maybe wheelie bins for recycling. I don't know, I think they'd be dearer. But those present recycling bags, as I said at Annual Council, the best thing to do is collect them all, wait till the wind's blowing in Ukraine, and just aim at the Russian tanks, let them clog them up, block their guns, because that's all about they're fit for.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Leader. The first thing I want to be able to do tonight is thank the residents across the borough that have had to put up with the most chaotic, badly implemented political decision that has ever been made by this council since last November.
And there's a lot of competition for that.
And there's been lots over the last 3 years of competition for that that has led to absolute chaos and confusion across the borough. And it's those residents that I think we all, as members, owe a debt of gratitude to for sharing their thoughts with us, getting behind this administration and the systems of what we're trying to put in place to rectify the chaos and the mess that was left behind. During the election campaign, along with yourself, Leader, and Councillor Yacoub, when we were going and knocking on doors in St Martin's, I'll never forget the conversations that we had with residents across the borough that highlighted that they were ashamed to bring friends, neighbours, people round because they were absolutely ashamed of people walking down their road and seeing the black bins that were left there week after week because they didn't have the systems put in place to be able to deal with it. And that was a political decision made by this council that allowed to happen, and those responsible should absolutely apologise and hang their heads in shame for what they put on residents across the borough. The first time I put out those blue and white sacks, mine blew away along with half my street at the time. I filled in the online form to be able to get replacements. And Mr Hendry, it's no criticism of your office at the time. The sheer volume of number of people that were asking for more blue and white sacks to be able to be replaced meant that the council couldn't cope with the demand to be able to get them back to the residents in the first place, which led to even more problems that were taking place. Councillor McGurran, I want to thank you for the report that you presented tonight, and I've seen you firsthand in meetings with officers, and I've seen your determination, and I've seen the determination from Mr Hendry and his team to be able to rectify the current situation, really put in place a system that is able to work for residents. And I think what members of the public that are watching this webcasting tonight and the actions that they can see from this administration is that this is a listening administration, but also a leading administration. And throughout all the items that we've been through tonight, what we're putting forward is a vision that responds to the challenges that our residents have raised, the concerns that they've given to us. And I know Councillor Baggett's a big fan of ours, but what we've heard tonight on several items is that the approach for the last 3 years has been to do nothing, and do nothing. What we're taking is a real proactive approach to be able to rectify these situations and put in place systems and practices that our residents want. And I look forward to seeing this system being implemented.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Leader. When we had a committee system, I was chairman of the Neighbourhood and Public Spaces Committee. We started looking at this council's waste strategy. We set up a very, very good working group. I thought we made very good progress on the very first parts of it, which was to look at how we do, first of all, we can separate food waste from green waste. And we made a very good start, and the separation and collection has worked very, very well. The next one we were looking at was how we dealt with recycling. And the last opportunity I had as chairman of that committee before the council changed control was for the consultation to take place on the type of bags we use for recycling, which took place in Oak Bridge. After that, there was a change of administration and the plans then changed. I can understand they had different ideas because we never discussed, while I was chairman of NMPS, whether or not to go to a weekly or fortnightly collection of residual waste. It was mentioned 1 or 2 times, but there was no decision on that at that point in time. And on the black bins, as far as I'm concerned, our amount of waste I can do it once a fortnight. But I know of neighbours who have children who couldn't get enough in, and I know of 2 who were refused initially additional black bins. So it has happened, it has caused problems elsewhere. I would never support going back to black sacks because they made so much of a mess round the borough, so much of a mess. And I think if you're going to do a weekly collection, if that's what the public want, I think it should be using the black bins because there's less refuse on the streets. And the other thing was, when we looked at the waste strategy, it was to identify the 15% of this borough where normal collections couldn't take place for perhaps community buildings, road layouts where vehicles couldn't get there. Now, by the time that the change of control, that 15% hadn't been actually totally identified. We were still looking. So I'm assuming that work did carry on and we did identify the 15%, and I think it'd be useful to know what that 15% was, because that was the judgment, it was about 15%, because they're the areas where I've seen, I think, the photographs of all the rubbish laying around in the streets, where the collections couldn't be taken place in the right way. I may be wrong, so I'm not being too critical. The other thing we started in the last days of those committee systems was in-cab technology, because I raised it with Mr. Brace at the time by saying, London buses are doing it, why can't we do it? And we were working out how to do it. And to be honest, I thought we were doing it. We're not doing it. What happened in the last 3 years? Because it is, according to the bus companies, reasonably easy to set up, providing you've got the willpower to do it, so you know where your vehicles are, you can trace them, you can direct them to certain places, and it saves money. On this, after the consultation, the thing we will be looking at is how you're going to fund it. And I think that'll be the question most people ask. I know from previously, when I was part of the administration, we did fund things which people said couldn't be funded. So I know that you and probably the rest of the Cabinet will look to see the ways that can be achieved. So I think that is important. But I think that not doing just what the public wants every time, but trying to make things easier for the public, I think is important. So I'll wait to see the result of the consultation. I hope it goes well, because I think people will want to have a say. I'll leave it there, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Just a couple of points from myself. So I think the first thing to say as well is our staff at the depot have been placed in a pretty impossible situation since November last year. And it is important to reiterate to the officers here that while we are critical of what has taken place, we are critical of the buck stopping with our friends in the opposition, not the officers and the staff at the depot who have been undertaking the work in incredibly difficult circumstances, and they deserve our full credit for what they have done. Equally, I think it was completely wrong for officers to be thrown under the bus when it came to questions about buying the wrong sacks and all of that. Ultimately, the photographs appeared of what the sacks were going to look like 6 months before they were actually delivered to people's homes. They were never going to work then. They haven't worked since. And again, that was a political decision. Just responding to a couple of things that we've heard. I mean, I've been a councillor on and off since 2012, and I've never seen a public response as positive as we saw this weekend to the crunch. Literally thousands of people coming out in all 5 towns of the borough and thanking the staff, thanking councillors who were there, the busiest crunch sites being in Billericay and Wickford, and on social media, Conservative councillors claiming credit for it, but now tonight apparently it's a terrible thing because the public are driving to these crunch sites and we can't take any credit for it. They've been a phenomenal success, and I am we will see ultimately when it comes to the data, but I'm pretty sure that this was an invest to save model, and that we will see things that would have otherwise have been fly tipped and dumped being brought to those crunch services, being disposed of in the correct way, and ultimately it will be a good thing. And it was our staff who were saying that to us when we were there as well, that they thought this was a really proactive thing to be doing. So I think we need to remember that. I also think we need to think about, in terms of the whole waste, the whole grounds maintenance, all of that's coming into play as well. The Conservative Party, there was form with the previous administration, because you cut the grounds maintenance service from 10 cuts to 8. You got rid of the summer prune. The money that went into the budget this year was purely for inflationary pressures. It was not to add anything into the service. And then you also find yourself in a situation where you claim that you've had to introduce this system because it will lead to a £2 million saving eventually. So the MTFS doesn't, and the budget that was passed in February doesn't put any mitigations in for if we get to 65%, we might get to 2 million. It was categorical that you were going to get to £2 million of savings, and you haven't. It's 1.4 million. You're £600,000 short, and that isn't reflected. We're not sat here saying, but in year 3 we'll get there, or in year 2 we'll get there. You promised last year, and you missed that target. And that is that's a massive issue for the council to be facing. And you have to wonder, why did you not fight for the residents of Basildon? You rolled over when it came to the grounds maintenance contract and the cuts that you've introduced there. You've rolled over to the county council when it comes to going to fortnightly waste collections on the black bins. And now the borough has got an administration who's prepared to say, no, we're going to go and have the conversation with the Waste Authority. We're going to go and fight for Basildon residents to be able to provide them with the service that they want. So I don't understand really your position. And I think one of the key things for the public to understand tonight is around recommendation 7. And that is that we're not going to be sat here waiting for the next 6 months, not doing anything. We are going to start piloting across the borough different schemes that might be able to work, so that we are actually going to be able to get on and start delivering some of this stuff. and then we're going to listen to what the public actually tell us in the consultation, rather than do a consultation and then ignore them. And the last thing I'd say on this is, the public overwhelmingly faced the choice in May as to whether or not to continue with an administration that wanted fortnightly collections to keep the blue and white recycling sacks, or to vote for change. And they voted overwhelmingly for change. And what is clear is that we have a mandate here, politically, to be able to bring back weekly collections for the black bins and to replace the blue and white recycling sacks. That is what the public voted for. It is what they expect. And I think the nervousness that I can see on the faces of the leader of the opposition and his deputy is because they know that we are about to deliver on that major promise. And that is something that every single household in the borough is going to see, and I'm sure welcome. So we are cracking on with it. But I don't think I have any other speakers, so I'm going to come back to Councillor McGurran to wind up, and then we'll move to the vote.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be relatively brief because quite a few others have chipped in with very valid points, so thank you for those. Councillor Harrison, you make some good points yourself about the working group. Your memory is very sharp. So, yeah, I was there as well, so I know what happened and didn't happen, despite certain misrepresentations subsequently. So I know exactly what happened. You're also absolutely right on the in-cab technology. I can't tell you what happened the last 3 years. I've no idea. What I can tell you is we're moving on a pace with that, and that's a game changer, as you know yourself. So we'll be cracking on with that. Councillor Yacoube's observations on costs, absolutely right, completely right. Our estates have been truly shocking, and you're right. You can't put a price on that. I think it was Councillor Ferguson, several people spoke about how embarrassed and ashamed our residents feel. I don't want that to ever happen again. I want to give them their pride back. At times, some of our estates looked, no disrespect, positively third world. I've actually been to Mongolia. I suspect I'm the only person in this chamber who has. And Ulaanbaatar, on a bad day, looked better than some of our estates. And I'm not kidding you there. So what I would say is, Councillor Baggott, you never cease to amaze me, Councillor Baggott. What a belter. The crunch, getting residents to do it themselves. Get residents to do it themselves. Honestly. And you're on about, it's only 5 weeks. How many did you provide? Not one. So 5 weeks of the 5 different locations, and you didn't provide one. And if it hadn't been for your Horlicks of a waste system, we probably wouldn't have needed to introduce the crunch anyway. And while we're on the subject of the crunch, it's not costing us a penny, not costing us an additional penny. So bear that in mind as well. You talked about recycling. Yeah, there's been an uptick in recycling rates. You would hope so, given the devastation you've caused with the system. But it's been nuanced. It's not been a straight line upwards. There's been very dips and upturns. And one of the things you didn't do, because you had a blinkered approach to it, was work with the residents and work on education. And I am confident we can deliver on the targets with a new system, because the residents will be on board with it and not struggling with 6 different methods of waste management, which is a struggle for anyone, and certainly if you've got young family pets, etc., it is nigh on undoable. And again, we see a pattern, don't we? We see a pattern with the Conservatives as they get more desperate. You described the report as waffle. That's offensive, and I think you should really think about that and think about apologising to James Hendry and his team, who've been working the socks off, and have produced a very thoughtful, imaginative report which addresses the problem. And you could describe that as waffle and slag off this fella and his team. I think that's disgraceful, and I think you should really reconsider those comments. As Councillor Yacoub said, you had a consultation, possibly the most flawed consultation ever. 61% of respondents said they didn't want weekly collections. 61% were either against or strongly against, but because you had already decided, you ignored that. Our consultation will be decent. it will listen to the residents, and we will come up with a workable solution to the waste collection system that residents can work with, and we can have estates that they can be proud of again. I mean, again, you know, sometimes, Councillor Baggott, you complain when I interrupt you, but you don't seem to mind when you interrupt me. You talked about do it straight away. Do it straight away. Pile in. Do it straight away. What's stopping you? Well, you know what's stopping us, Councillor Baggott, and the fellow next to you, Councillor Blake, definitely does, because you've got to give Essex County Council 6 months' notice. And you know that because you screwed that up as well. And that's why you introduced the new waste system in November, the worst possible time of the year. So you know damn well why we have to go through this process. And we are steaming on as quickly as we can. And we will get there as quickly as we can. And it will work, unlike yours.
Thank you, Councillor McGurran. The recommendations are on page 254. We'll move to the vote. All those in favour? Most positive vote we've ever taken. Unanimous. Thank you all. Next, we have to take a vote on moving into part 2 to protect the council from commercially sensitive information. Can I take a vote on moving into part 2? All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you.